Hi, folks. This is Rick Doc Walker, the DOC.
This is John Kime, and you're listening to the Mess Hall with Rally Captain and Tailgate Ted.
What's going on, Rally? You made it back from Baltimore safely, man. How you doing?
Yo, I'm excited. I really am for what is in store for us fans as well as the team. I really am, man. Let's get it.
I am too, man. And before we jump into what you saw up in Baltimore, I got to ask you, I don't know where Owings Mills is. I've never even thought it was a place on the map. I thought it was kind of made up like Raljohn, Maryland was. But you got a chance to go up there, and I know where you live. I'm not trying to put you on blast and let everyone else know where you are, but how early did you have to get up to be there for a 9 o'clock practice? And how many don't sleep energies did you chug on the way up 95 or whatever road you were going to take to get out there?
Well, first, let me say this. Because Don't Sleep is such a great product, I only needed one. They took good care of me as far as that's concerned. I had to get up roughly about 5:30, just to make sure that I was there on time. So, I waited a while, but nevertheless, about 5:30, 6-ish, if you will. So
you're up earlier than that for work. So, I mean, I guess that's not too bad.
It was kind of like sleeping in a little bit, but still, when it's not work and it's pleasure, Don't Sleep handle their business. And I needed it, and it helped me out because I was excited already to trying to get up there and beat the traffic and the whole 9 yards. And once I got there, I'll just wait for another segment. How about that?
I'm jealous, man. It looked like a ton of fun, and we'll jump into that in a minute. But I want to talk about the Browns preseason game before we jump into what's been going on this past week. And for those wondering, it's Wednesday, August 16th at 4:30 that we're recording this. And if you're listening to this, odds are you watched some of the Browns game, maybe, if you didn't fall asleep during the rain delay, because that was frustrating. I didn't think that a preseason game could get dragged out any longer than it should. And then we had an hour to kill before that damn thing turned on. What did you actually do during the time you had to just kind of sit around and wait?
Deal with probably 99.9% of everybody else did and watch this stupid show they had on TV. But, it reminded me, I think it was 2016, 17, possibly, when I went down to Tampa for a preseason game, and they actually had the game was going to be on a Friday, and they moved it. No, the game was going to be on a Thursday. They moved it back to a Friday because of a hurricane, and sure enough, the game really wasn't delayed that long, but it was delayed just for a minute, if you will, because they were saying that a hurricane's coming and torrential rain, downpour. It was, matter of fact, I even made a live video. I have to go in my archives and maybe pull it up, but it was crazy being down there. So that's what it reminded me of. But luckily, I was in the comforts of my own home, and I didn't have to worry about anything foolish like that. But some fans did actually go to that game, and I was actually shocked because there was a young lady who I saw with a Rapid Heart t-shirt on.
Oh, nice, man. I got to get me one of those too.
Yeah.
If you got a large line around, I'll see you on Monday at FedEx. But it reminded me of, I don't know if you remember a preseason game years ago against the Ravens, where we actually had a rain delay at FedEx Field for the preseason game. And we got stuck and had to evacuate the concourse. And it wasn't as packed as a Beyonce concert, but just imagine all these Baltimoreans and then a bunch of Washington fans hanging out in the lower level concourse. The amount of fights that broke out down that lower level concourse was insane.
I was going to say that doesn't bode well.
No, not at all. Because they had signs that they brought into the stadium of "get your team out of our state" and just all this other crap. This isn't Washington, it's Maryland. And just like, to me, I can't stand Baltimore. And I know you got to meet my man, Captain Defense, up there. And I love Wes. He's a good dude.
Cool
but to
dude,
me,
yeah.
People from Baltimore have little brother syndrome when it comes to DC. Our town is just more important than their town. and we get the coverage. Their football team has been better than ours, but we still get more coverage than they do, in my opinion. So they hate on us.
Yeah.
And, it was interesting. But when I saw all those Browns fans in the dog pound, I could only imagine in my head, like that lady that you mentioned that was actually at the game, how many people are probably barking in her ear right now as she's just trying to get to her seat and watch this preseason game that means nothing and come back home to the DMV.
Well, man, maybe I'm a little biased, but they treated the captain pretty good when I was there. So it wasn't that bad. Maybe they just know who to pick on. I'm a firm believer of that. Other fans know who they can and can't pick on. And for me, for whatever reason, I just don't get picked on. I may get talked about a little bit, but after a couple times of me giving them a good little look, it stops. It's like your mom in church. To get that side eye, they stop.
See, to me, preseason is kind of amateur hour because you got a bunch of people that don't typically come to games that got tickets to go to a game. And I appreciate everyone that helped me out. I got tickets for a family of 8 that's going to come out. They can't really afford to go to a game, and they got a bunch of kids and they want to bring them out. So preseason is it's not your typical experience. And you don't see the starters play that much. And the fans really aren't into the game as much because you don't even know some of the players on the field because it's a 90-man roster versus, your regular 53. But one good thing that I saw during the game was the fact that our new owner was actually watching the game from the stands. And it made me wonder, what are the odds you and Josh Harris are going to be standing beside each other in those dream seats of yours for one of the Commanders' home games, and you're going to take a selfie with him and have him, and I know only players are allowed to, but maybe have him wear the chain.
That is the goal. That is the goal, to have new ownership christen, or me christen new ownership with the chain. Dan said no.
He told you no, he wouldn't put it on.
He told me no.
Oh,
and
my
so
goodness. I should have told us everything.
I said, no problem, Dan. Hey, he goes, you want an autograph? And I was like, nah, I'm good. So we'll see if the new ownership, the Hall Group, puts on the rally chain. And it would be something big if they did. Because like I said, I think it's a good way of christening the fan base, truly christening the fan base.
It's almost like you're baptizing him when you put that chain over top of his neck and he sits there just in all of its glory with the sun shining down on him. And it was great to see him down there and not up in a box, hanging out in the rain with his son, just watching the team. And that's not something that I could ever say Dan did when he was here. I remember talking to him a couple times down on the field for pregame stuff. When I was in Jacksonville for a game around Christmas time and other times, but he always had security around him and he always had all these people around him and you couldn't really get that close. And if you did, they looked at you up and down to make sure you weren't going to do anything crazy, like you were going to assault this man. And I know a lot of fans probably wanted to after a while, but it was just another thing that's just so refreshing to see with this new group, just engaging with the fan base. And that wasn't even our home. That was, Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm actually afraid to see him do that at FedEx. I really am. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's a big part of me that wants him to, but then there's another part of me, would he really enjoy that? Like when he's walking down in Ashburn to training camp, it's roped off and he can engage and disengage at any given time that he wants to. But at FedEx, if he doesn't have any ropes around him, I mean, man, maybe the first game he may do that. After that, he'll probably say enough of this, man. But he seems like a very personable guy, and I look forward to meeting all of them at some point in time.
Well, he's also there to watch the game, and to me, you don't get a chance to watch the game if you do that. When I'm at the games, I got one headphone in listening to the radio call, and other one, I'm just watching straight down the field. Mrs. Tailgate's got to bring friends, so she's got someone to talk to because I'm not paying any attention to anything around me. I'm just looking straight at the field. We got 4 tickets. She puts up with a lot, man. She really does. We got 4 tickets just so she can invite 2 other friends to go to the game because I'm not chatting with her or talking to her. And to me, if I'm, Josh Harris, I don't want to talk to fans. I want to watch, what I paid for,
Yeah.
$6 billion, and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And from what I saw against the Browns, I would wonder if I could get my, 30-day money back guarantee if I'm Josh Harris, just because that offensive line and the first team defensive line, who was supposed to be a strength of this team, they got out hustled. They got outplayed. We constantly heard, well, they're not going to be going up against their teammates. They're going up against someone different. Well, they went up against someone different, and the first team offensive line did not look good. And the defensive line just let Deshaun Watson carve them up like it was a hot knife through butter. And on top of that, they didn't even have their number one running back, Nick Chubb,
Yeah.
and their number one defensive lineman in Myles Garrett in, and they still got pressure on Sam. Curious what your thoughts were watching the first team O&D.
I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It seemed as though it took them to get their butts on the goal line to say, "Oh, we're actually playing a football game," or maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed as though, hey, we're the number one defense. We can do anything. Oh, wait a minute. We are actually playing a game. Or the excuse that I heard was, well, we didn't really scheme anything up, but at the same time, defense is mano a mano. You beat your man, go find the ball, tackle the ball carrier. And it didn't happen. And so I was a little frustrated, but I will say that I do see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I'll get into that probably in our next segment. But as far as the Browns game is concerned, I was a little disappointed. So I was happy that we won, but we all know that there's no such thing as preseason champs. So I just want to see better, and I did see better. So yeah, that one's done. We squeaked away with a win. It's
Thank
done.
goodness it's done.
Now we're moving on to Baltimore.
And we got out of the game relatively healthy. Chase self-reported a stinger, and Fedarian Mathis got banged up, I think on the same play that Chase got banged up. But one thing that I did see that was good, and I went back and watched the All-22 footage, and Mark Bullock, who was a great follow on Twitter, by the way, for any Commanders fans out there, if you get a chance, go back and sign up for Mark Bullock's stuff. I'll put it on our YouTube page so you can find him. It's Mark Bullock, Bullock NFL. He had a great breakdown of Sam Howell. Didn't cost anything to sign up for his page. And he goes through and talks about Sam's decision-making and what he saw. And he has video clips and has all this stuff to back it in those video clips and the types of routes that the receivers are running and why Sam went here versus going here during different plays. And the part that was great was Sam's decision-making, where he actually went with the ball and what he decided to do. The only time that really he didn't fare well was that sack that he gave up. And that was on Sam. He held the ball way too long, but he had, let's see here, a quarterback rating of 119.1. He was 9 for 12, 77 yards, had a touchdown. And you and I were texting back and forth about it. I'm glad he had a touchdown just so we can pad some stats. Let's be realistic. It was against the second team defense. The Browns had already taken their starters out that were playing. So I kind of don't give it a ton of credit from that standpoint, but it was still a beautiful route by Jahan. It was still a nice throw by Sam, and he made the right read. And Rivera reaffirmed that in his press conferences since then, saying the decision-making on where Howell is going is what's important. And we played clips a couple weeks back on Sam saying how he has, I want to say, his total command of the offense.
Yeah,
I'm thinking it's kind of hard to believe from a guy that's in a brand new system, in a wordy system such as Eric Bieniemy's. But there was an article in the Washington Post that I read this past weekend. I want to say it was by Sam Fortier, talking about how the actual lingo, the words that Bieniemy uses, are somewhat identical to the words that Howell and De'Ami Brown used back in North Carolina.
Mm.
So seeing that, now I can understand why he does have a better grasp of this offense, because it is new for 10 other guys. But for him, it's almost like he got held back in class and he already knows what's coming up on the test because he's already been through part of this through 3 years of college. So
I'll take it. I'll take that though.
same here. And
Yeah.
with that being said, we did not game plan for the Browns. They're not going to do that. So what can you take out of a preseason game? You get through it healthy, and hopefully you see your guys step up when it comes to one-on-one stuff. And the defensive line, they got shook, and I think they kind of woke up. And
Yeah.
what we have seen the past 2 days, and I want to talk to you about this specifically now, the defensive line and the offensive line appear to have stepped things up once they got to that fictitious land, Owings Mills, up there in Maryland, when they practiced against the Ravens on Tuesday and Wednesday.
So this is what I'm happy to report back to you about. So it's two, this is going to be twofold, if you will. What I'm happy and what I noticed. So initially going into the facility, which is a phenomenal facility, it really lets me know how a sponsor as well as an owner can put their money to great use. And the collaboration with Under Armour and the Ravens, I walked in and that whole brick inlay of how their headquarters was, I just was in awe. I really was. I liked how they had the setup with their fields. They had basically 3 bleachers, one on either side in an end zone view. And man, Ted, it was very nice. And this is probably the last time you hear me talk bad about Dan Snyder, but it just goes to show you where he didn't put his money into, obviously, because it's night and day. And
fan experience, period.
Yeah,
He didn't care and put any money into it.
It's just night and day. And so that's the last thing I'm going to attempt to bring up the past. So now going into the good news. You want the good or the bad first? Which one do you want?
Let's start with the bad so we can end with the good.
Okay. This is what I saw as far as the bad is concerned. The bad is when we're doing 11 on 11 drills, the linemen, if you will, not defense, but the offense, they have an issue with not the person who he's head up with, but the person that's to the left or to the right of them.
So stunts.
And yes, that's what I saw. Then that was the bad. Now, if I want to talk about the good, which made me bring my thought process back for what everyone's talking about is offensive line. When it came down to one-on-one drills against the Ravens, those guys handled their business. And I was amazed at how they weren't letting the defensive guys get close to not the quarterback, but the coach who was acting as the quarterback during the position drills. So I said to myself, wow, if they can do this in a game, they won't have any problems. But then that's the bad. The coach needs to get them coached up better for stunts and awareness, because that seems to be where the problem was. One-on-one, I have all the faith that these guys can do what it needs to be done. But what happens when that guy comes from the left or from the right of you? You know, what do you do then? And I think that it creates a gap. They maybe miss an assignment, if you will, to where that linebacker can shoot up, or another guy can loop around him. The end can loop around him and do something different. So that's what I saw. One-on-one, though, man, I have no doubt that these guys can handle their business. As far as the QB is concerned, Sam impressed me. He really did. And Ted, I got to tell you that for the first time in a long time, I feel that we are going to be okay, man. I really do, based upon what I saw in Baltimore. Now, I think that there's a part of me that wishes that we could play Baltimore for the last game of the season, for preseason. versus back to back after these practices. And I say that because you've been out there 2 days with these guys. Now they kind of know your tendencies, if you will. So we're not really going to get, I don't feel, a good interpretation of what a game would be like because they've seen what you've done for the last 2 days. They know they know how you line up. They know all that type of stuff. So if they could have forgotten it a little bit if it was the last game, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's just the last preseason game. You typically won't see your starters. So the issue is that Bengals game. I mean, talk about Snorefest. You're going to have guys fighting for their NFL careers, which is great, and we'll definitely have some players, Commanders players that you shouldn't sleep on. Sponsored by Don't Sleep Energy, but I had a chance to watch it on the Ravens feed. So if anyone listening to this has not had a chance to see it, you can go to YouTube, and the Ravens have the entire practice on their YouTube channel. It is 2 hours, and you are stuck listening to a couple of Ravens commentators talk about their team and jack their team up and defend their team when they body slammed Danny Johnson and a bunch of stupid fights happened. But you got to see what Rowley's talking about. There was an overhead shot where you have 5 offensive linemen and you've got the defensive line in front of them, and you know who is actually rushing at that point. And the offensive line is basically, like Rowley's saying, mano a mano against the guy in front of them. But the D line can shift and do a stunt and move side to side versus just coming head on at you. And there were a couple of times where our guys went after the same person. And it was kind of shocking to see. One good thing was that I saw out of this, the 11 on 11s were all shown on this feed. If anyone wants to see it, you can catch it. I was impressed by Emmanuel Forbes, man. Just seeing him step up in that Browns game on the goal line, and then seeing him cover Odell Beckham. And granted, OBJ isn't the same OBJ from a couple years ago. But if you watched a screenplay that he caught and he just turned on the Jets during 11 on 11s against us on Tuesday, he still has some speed. And there were a bunch of times where he had a step or two on Forbes. Forbes just turned on another gear. He hit that nitrous button or whatever the hell it was. And he was there and deflected and broke up a bunch of those passes. And he didn't even turn around. And that's been something that has concerned me watching him at practice. But he's watching the receiver's eyes and he's watching their hands. And the second their hands go up is the second he reacts. And he immediately knows that ball's going to be there and knocks it away. And he did it again today. And it was basically bang, bang, ball's there, he's there. And I had some concerns about young man being able to just be physical. There was one point where one of the Ravens players took a cheap shot at him, and he just gave him a couple of, 1, 2, 3s and just started using his helmet as a punching bag and just wasn't taking it, man. And I thought that we were going to get pushed around by Baltimore. The Ravens are a perennial playoff team. They're a really good physical team, and we have not been. But these guys held their own the past 2 days in Baltimore from what I saw, from everything I read. And I am impressed. Much like you, I think that we're there, but I'm gonna put a caveat. Man, I absolutely love what I'm seeing in Sam Howell.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely love it. He has an arm. He can make every single throw. He's got the head on his shoulders to do what he needs to do. I am just terrified of those 5 guys in front of him, and maybe the 3 guys in the middle the most in regards to, 2 guys, Gates and your left guard, because Sadiq Charles did not play against the Browns. You had Chris Paul go in. Charles has been banged up for quite some time. Charles practiced on Tuesday against the Ravens and actually did a damn good job.
Surprisingly.
And that's pretty much, that's who I was watching. Considering he has not practiced or done anything, he's now going up against Baltimore's defensive line, and he's actually holding his own. Today, Wednesday, they took him out. He didn't make the entire practice because he got banged up again. This young man's health and inability to be available is a huge concern. And Chris Paul, to me, has not proven that he is starting left guard material. And now you've got the team trying Tyler Larson, your backup center. And was it Strongbow? I always get the guy's name wrong. Our new rookie center, moving him over at center. And I get that you have to do that for position flex and you don't want to have a center just be a center. But now your backup other guard idea is 2 backup centers to move over and protect Sam's blind side.
Yeah, that's not good. And I think the deal is with Charles is I realistically, it's one of those things to where they are giving him more than enough time because they don't want it to be a situation where, well, what if we just would have, and he possibly goes to another team and balls out, but we had the guy on our roster. At the same time, dude, if you can't stay healthy, I mean, we're going to have to unfortunately let you go. And that's the bad thing about the business at football. You get no love being in the tub, and that's just how it is, man. So I wanted to tell you, Ted, that everyone views the Ravens as the standard, if you will. So I'm going to just say, let's say Baltimore is a 9. Okay, let's just throwing out a number. Baltimore is a 9. Their standard is a 9. In years past, Commanders' standard would have probably been a 6.5 to 7. This year, and I'm going to say this, if Baltimore's standard was a 9, I view the Commanders at an 8 to an 8.5 based upon what I saw. So we're close, and we just got to shore up some things, and this can turn into a hellified ball club. Man, Ted, and our listeners and viewers, this club can turn into a great thing. We just got to shore up a couple things. And if we do, look out, man. Look out.
I agree with you, man. I definitely agree with you. And to me, it's the Eric Bieniemy effect.
Mm-hmm.
Our team has been just practicing hard and playing tough against each other all camp. We get to Baltimore, we didn't let them push us around. We didn't let them be a bully against us. We stepped up and we punched right back. Sometimes we actually did punch right back.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the commentators were saying, oh, well, it kind of isn't fair because the Ravens don't practice till 2:00 in the afternoon. And they're actually practicing at 9:00 in the morning now because that's when the Commanders practice. Give me a break, man. And this was on the stupid Baltimore feed that I got stuck listening to.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I think Rocket Ishmael was on with JP and B Mitch talking about circadian rhythms and basically giving an excuse as to why some of the players didn't seem to have as much energy as the Commanders players because they practice in the afternoon and we practice in the morning. Shut the hell up. You guys knew that we were going to be practicing you guys for how many months now? If your players weren't up to the task, don't give us that crap excuse. Our guys stood toe to toe with you and you were a little embarrassed about it. Let's be real.
That's what it boils down to. So with that being said, let's say the game's played in London or Germany where there's a time change. Are you going to say that our guys didn't play well because of the time change in London? Or are you going to go out there and play a football game? We don't want to hear these excuses. Come on.
It was crazy. And seeing the Ravens fans actually say the same thing. And I was watching it on my cell phone, so it was driving me crazy because I was trying to disable the comments going through on the feed on YouTube because everyone, before all the comments were sell the team, F Dan Snyder, fire Bruce Allen. Now it was all the comments about the Ravens fans making fun of our name and, oh, this isn't fair. Lamar wouldn't be woken up yet. He'd still be sleeping, hanging out in his bed. That's why he didn't make this pass. I'm like, no, he didn't make this pass because Emmanuel Forbes was there. No, he didn't get to do
He-
this because Deron Payne was in his face.
yes,
Because our
exactly.
defensive line stepped up. And
Mm.
if we didn't get to see this joint practice versus the Ravens, and all we got was them not showing us a good performance against the Browns, I would be concerned.
Same, definitely. And that's what I was saying. Going into the joint practices, I was saying to myself, "Oh man, here we go." But obviously, coach got them ready, or maybe they even got themselves ready. I don't know. But when it came down to it, they were ready and they performed. And like you said, I was happy to see Forrest going up against OBJ and sticking with him. Like I said, I'm not gonna say that we're a 9 just yet. We're an 8, 8.5 to a 9. Shore up those little things. We can become a 9 and surpass a 9 and go to a 10. It's gonna take a minute. We're not there yet. So don't say Cap said we're not there yet. We've got some. We talked about the holes. We talked about what needs to be shored up. If they can get it done, we'll be okay. And I think what did they say? We only going to win 6 games, 6.5 games.
6
I
and
think
a
it
half.
is.
Yeah, 6.5.
Yeah,
So you're
yeah.
under.
Oh, bro, I see us surpassing that easy. And with that being said, my bet MGM is going to come right on through because they underplayed us big time.
I'm not as excited about you around the entire team just because it's still too big a question mark with offensive line. But the good news is Bieniemy can scheme around that. And one thing I also saw during that Browns game is you have a first-time play caller, Eric Bieniemy, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Opposing teams' defensive coordinators don't know what to expect with him, but he is also going to take some time getting into rhythm, calling plays for the Washington Commanders, not for the Kansas City Chiefs. And there were a lot of plays that when I'm going back and watching it, I can see why he called that if he had the Chiefs that he's calling that play for. But some of those pass plays and some of those screens were so long developing that it just took too much time and we couldn't do that. And to me, Bieniemy is going to learn the strengths and weaknesses of our starters and know what and what not to call. And he can hide some of the, I guess, just inefficiencies of our O-line to a degree. And Sam can do that as well with his legs. We saw how he stretched out a play and hit Cole Turner on that 4th down and was able to get that first just by buying time with his legs. And he's going to have to do that. It's going to be a combination. And if we can get that to happen and stay healthy, then I'm right there with you, man. That 6.5 bet to me is a no-brainer. And I definitely put some money down on it. And, people like to always say there hasn't been a repeat NFC East winner in 20 years?
20 years.
We're winning the East. I'm just saying, Sam is legit. Jahan is legit. Terry is legit.
And I'll tell you somebody else who surprised me. Excuse me for interrupting you. Somebody else who surprised me is Brissett can spin that ball, man. I heard it in the stands, and that was amazing to me. Before seeing him, you see him in practice, you see him in Ashburn, but being there in Baltimore in the stands, I heard that ball and he put some zip on it, and it surprised me. It really did. I was like, is this the same guy that I've seen? But because also how their practice field was, we were closer than normal, if you will, and so you could hear that ball. And Terry was talking cash trash. I'm not sure if they showed it, but Terry was saying all day. I mean, he was talking cash trash, and he even started cussing. And I was like, have I ever heard Terry cuss? I don't think I've ever heard Terry cuss, but he was into it. And he says, it's going to be open all day. We coming for you all day, talking cash trash. And so I love to hear that. I love to hear that, man.
That's all. Are you sure Brissett didn't have one of those Nerf footballs that had that little whistle inside?
No,
so when you threw it, it just made that sound?
No, it was amazing. It really was. I got to tell you that. I'm just so pumped, man. I really am, and I know we got to go through the preseason to get to regular season, but God dog it, I'm ready to see people and our team back at FedEx Field. Speaking of which, I know it's only a preseason game. What do you think of the crowd's going to be on Monday?
Because it's a Monday night, I don't think it's going to be as crazy as it should be.
Okay.
Just because people got to work. But because it's Baltimore versus Washington, it's going to be packed, man. There's going to be a ton of fans out there. I just don't know the mix. I don't know if it's going to be 60-40 us versus them or what, because on top of that, I don't think Lamar is playing. I'm not sure if they're actually going to be giving him reps. I thought I heard them talk about that on their broadcast where you're not really seeing him during the preseason because they just want to save him, and I don't blame them. I mean, the way John Allen and Deron Payne were busting through their offensive line and getting to him, I can see them not wanting to start Lamar and play that game. But I can tell you, I am looking forward to being back at FedEx Field, and I get it's a preseason game, and they haven't made a bunch of improvements, but supposed to have new speakers.
Can't wait to hear that.
New ribbon boards, just all this stuff going on, man. And I'm excited to be back there with everybody. But before we jump to that real quick, the one last thing that concerns me a little bit is towards the end of practice, and this was out of an article from the Washington Post, said both teams were cognizant of what they put on display. And after the fights during one-on-ones, they shifted to a team period that did not include full speed rushing from Baltimore's defensive line. The emphasis instead was on the coverage and route concepts and decision-making for Sam Howell. So all of this iron sharpens iron. Well, now you are having the Ravens defensive line not actually provide a legit pass rush in 11-on-11 drills against our offensive line.
Well, okay. So 2 things with that. I'm okay with that, actually. And the reason why I say I'm okay with that is because it just gives Sam more of a mental note of where he needs to go with the ball in certain situations. So, and they said, remember, that the purpose of this practice was it's going to be more scripted so that you're going to see things of that nature. And to me, it just falls right into what they said they were going to do. We saw them practice goal line. We saw them practice, one-on-one. We saw them practice routes. So this is just another one of those things where we as fans may not like it because it doesn't give us much, but it gives Sam what he needs. And if it works for him, then I'm cool with it, because realistically, can you really get it done if someone's always in your face and you can't understand the concept, so to speak? So I'm cool with them backing off a little bit to allow him to say, oh, this is where the ball should go. Or, yeah, I understand now, and I don't think that you would get the same effect, if you will, if they were just tackling him. And I know it's not a game, but at the same time, you learn by practicing. And so I'm okay with it.
I hear you. It's just, to me, the position group that needs the most work is offensive line. And
Agreed.
you're not going to get it going against, 3/4 speed, half speed against these guys coming at you in what's supposed to be a team drill. And because you don't want another fight to happen, because Nick Gates should have actually been a pro wrestler instead of a starting center, and you're worried that something's going to go on and you just want to get the work done. And Gates was quoted that he looks to instigate and start things with opposing players and does it on purpose because he knows how to shut it off and make sure he doesn't cross that line. I hope he's right. And I hope that's the case, because all I'm seeing from that young man is he doesn't like to wear shirts and he likes to throw his fists.
He doesn't like to wear shirts. I couldn't believe when I saw him walk out of the locker room and he just walked like, hey, what's up? But so Ted, man, I hear what you're saying. I really do. But Sam's got to know where to put the ball. And I would rather him learn this way, and possibly because we want to stay away from the eye bug. We want to stay away from that eye bug. So it's also a way of them dialing it down to where both teams won't catch the eye bug. So I'm trust me, bro, I'm okay with it as long as they got something out of it. That's the biggest thing. They get something out of it. Now, if they didn't get anything out of it, then you're right. It was a waste of time. But the main thing is getting something out of it, going back on tape and saying, okay, you saw this many people rush, or you saw this coverage. Why did you go there? Or why did you do this? And if he can answer it, and I think that mentally it's already sped up in his head, he just needs to make sure that he's doing the right thing. And I have full faith that he will be able to do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm with you, man. I'm a Howell believer. I'm not saying I'm part of the Howell Hive, but I believe in this young man, and I know that he can do what Bieniemy is asking him. But talking about that eye bug, how concerned are you that Logan Thomas has not actually practiced since August 4th? That he wasn't out there in the Browns game, and he wasn't out there at all during Ravens Park?
I don't like it. It's like Chase. I don't like it, but I understand. He's shown that he's a formidable catcher. Pass catcher. He can still do what needs to be done. He's a little getting up there in age, so providing that he can still use his intangibles and catch the ball and block, which I've always been questioning about his blocking skills and ability, but if he can just do half of it, right now, and feel okay, then I'm okay with keeping him out. Like St. Juice, I'm okay with him keeping him out, even though he did play and he broke up a pass. I'm okay with them keeping him out right now, because ultimately we have faith in you being able to do what needs to be done. And right now, this is, as Iverson said, we're talking about practice. So when he's good, let him run with the horses. If not, we've got a group of young tight ends that are ready to come in and fill his shoes, and he knows that. But it's all about communication, man. The coaches are asking, I'm sure, how you feel. It's not good today, coach. All right, well, back off of it a little bit. Continue stretching, working out, doing what you got to do, because ultimately, this means nothing. It means nothing. Game 1, that's where we need you.
Agreed. It means nothing. It is practice. But to me, it's a track record. It's the history of this. He played 6 games in 2021. It's his inability to stay healthy lately is what concerns me. And we saw John Bates had that drop against the Browns. I mean, he couldn't have been more wide open. And it was frustrating to see him drop that ball. He actually stepped up a ton, and Rivera talked about it during his press conference today, how Bates had a bunch of nice blocks and leaked out and caught passes after the fact, which was definitely refreshing to see and watch on that feed, and also hear coach give him some of those props. Because I am, at this point, I cannot trust Logan Thomas to make it a full 17 games. He has not done that since, 2020? I mean, it's been some time since he has actually played a full season. Cole Turner, who is supposed to be the second receiving tight end, had a bad game. He had a bad practice. He apparently had a bunch of balls stripped away from him and a bunch of balls he dropped out there against the Ravens. So I am concerned about being one-dimensional at the tight end spot. When you knew Jordan Reed was in, you knew it was a pass play, right?
Yeah.
We can't have that. And Eric Bieniemy's offense uses a bunch of 3 tight end sets. We don't have 3 healthy, legit tight ends right now. And it is still only August 16th, and the first game, it's less than a month away. So he still has some time to get out there. It's a calf strain. So is he able to fight through that and then not tweak it again? On a 1 out of 10 scale, I'm a 6. in my concern around his health.
Okay. Well, so are you saying that we should go to the tight end waiver wire and see who's out there and take a chance with somebody? Is that what I'm hearing?
No, because unfortunately, the problem is there's no one out there that's worth anything. They brought a tight end in, but the problem is they brought that guy in because they needed a camp body. I mean, you lost Hodges in the beginning of mini camp because he tore something, did something, can't remember exactly what it was. So now you are stuck with who you have. And this was a very tight end deep draft that we did not decide to move on and do anything because Logan was going to be here and we had Hodges and we had Turner and Bates. Well, right now, everyone's talking about how Eric Bieniemy used Travis Kelce. And obviously we don't have a Travis Kelce on our roster, but we don't even have someone that can carry Kelce's jockstrap in regards to the depth of a tight end. So can Bieniemy adjust his offense if he doesn't have that big man to go down the seam and maybe take advantage of those intermediate routes is going to be a question.
Well, it's not going to be Ken. It's going to be who's he going to get to do it. That's what it is. Ken, no, you're going to be the one to do it. And I need you to when I was playing, it was called a circle drill. And the quarterback would be 10 yards out. And all you did was run in a circle and the quarterback threw the ball to you to make sure that you could catch. So I'm sure they got some better drills than that with the jugs machine or something. But if it needs to be done, what we do know is Eric is smart enough to figure it out. And if it means disguising or bluffing or whatever you want to call it, I'm sure that he's going to be able to get it done. And once again, Ted, I keep bringing this back up to you. This kind of reminds me of, and I said it once before, I said it last show, and I probably will continue to say it. It reminds me of 2012 with RG3 and the line that we had with, and I can't even remember those guys' names, but you know, it was like an open gate some plays. Come on in and say hi to RG3, and guys are just run right by him, and RG3 had to get on his wheels. Well, but the Shanahans made plays for that, and I bring that back to Bieniemy because the Shanahans aren't here anymore. 2012 is long gone. We're talking about Coach Eric Bieniemy and his masterful smarts, if you will. I think that he is seeing it right now. It's unfolding right in front of his face. So he doesn't have a choice but to see it. So now this is where the big bucks come in of why you get paid to be an assistant head coach, drawing up and scheming up new plays that I'm sure we haven't even seen yet. But they know, the coaches, I'm sure, are talking with each other and saying, "Nah, we can't depend on this play. You know, we may try to throw it in there, but we're not going to depend on it. We're going to do something different." That swinging gate or whatever you want to call it. So,
not the swinging gate. Hopefully not that one. But no, I hear you. And we actually saw that against the Browns because there were a couple of run plays towards the last part of the first half where he called some draws, knowing that the defensive line was just blowing up our offensive line. And then they were just going to run right past it. So Bieniemy, I have faith in him to do it. To me, it is, can the personnel execute the game plan? And we know Terry can execute. We know Jahan can do it. We know Curtis can do it. We know, at least we think we know, that Sam can do it. To me, the biggest question is right now, other than offensive line, is tight end. Because it is a huge gaping hole. And until we get Logan back out there for some meaningful reps. Now, he was on the side field doing some stuff, and Rivera said that that was a step in the right direction. It's just with these, fast twitch type guys, hamstrings, calves, things like that, groins, those concern me. And it just makes me wonder because I'm sorry, I love John Bates. I'm good friends with the family. You know, his dad's tweeted me a couple of times going back and forth. He ain't no Logan Thomas. We don't have anyone on our team that can play like Logan. Logan is a power forward for our team that plays football. And he basically, in my opinion, was going to be Sam's safety net. And without that safety net, Bieniemy's going to have to earn every single dollar he's getting paid as that assistant head coach.
Yeah, that's why they pay him the big bucks. Let's make it happen. Can't make any excuses. And what does he say? He wants you to be uncomfortable. Well, now as a coach, he's starting to feel uncomfortable. So he's got to make it comfortable for himself and the guys.
He does. And speaking of comfort, we're heading back to FedEx Field, and it's our home away from home. I can't wait to get back out there. And for those wondering, I don't tailgate during preseason. You will see me out there with a bucket of chicken from Royal Farm and a beer and a cigar. Come stop by, come hang out. But for those watching at home, what Commanders player are you telling fans don't sleep on? Last week, it was the offensive line, and you wanted fans to watch them and pay attention to them. This week, what Commanders player are you telling fans don't sleep on this guy or position group?
Don't sleep on Pringle. From what I saw at Baltimore's camp, don't sleep on him. Trust and believe he's going to be a factor, a huge factor.
So you think Pringle's making the roster?
Pringle's making the roster, bro. From what I saw Tuesday.
I agree with you. I think Pringle is making this roster. I think there's a reason why they brought him here. He knows the plays. He knows the offense coming from Kansas City. I'm trying to pull up his stats in the last game. Byron Pringle had 1 catch for 32 yards. He had 2 targets. But I mean, he's also playing with the second and third team, offense at that point. And other people have made this comment. Would our first team look better if there wasn't that 1 hour delay? Because
that's possible. Yeah.
You got guys that are out there, they're warmed up, they're amped up, they're ready to go. And then you got to turn it off. And next thing you know, that adrenaline dump just goes down, and you got to get ramped up again in 15 minutes. So who knows? I am really looking forward to seeing us just punch the Ravens in the mouth and being out there. But for me, last week it was Chris Rodriguez, and I enjoyed watching that young man run. He averaged almost 8 yards a carry. He was a bright spot for our offense towards the second half of that game. I'm telling our listeners, if you get a chance, pay attention to Casimir Allen. This young man might be Dax Milne's worst enemy.
Yeah.
Mr. Steal Your Girl, in my opinion, should not be on this team because Casimir Allen is going to take his spot. Kaz had 2 kick returns, 2 for 41 yards, his longest to 25, and he had 2 punt returns, 2 for 24, longest to 14. And apparently during special teams drills, and we know how Harbaugh loves special teams up in Baltimore, Kaz was the one taking the reps with the first team special teams, and Dax was sitting on the sideline. And I don't know how many times last year where Dax went backwards.
Yeah.
And this young man, Kaz, can earn himself a roster spot. And special teams isn't what it used to be, but I really think that's because we just haven't had the playmakers. We haven't had the guys there to do it. And this young man showed that he can make plays and has a chance to make that an important part of our game once again.
Well, there was a huge meme a couple years back with this young lady. They put it in a rap version. You're about to lose your job. Do you remember that?
Oh,
You're
yeah.
about
I know
to lose your job. You're about to lose your job. So I think you're right. I think it's going to happen. But when it's cut, they actually changed the rules. So cut down is actually after the last preseason game, right?
It is, yeah, because you used to have to do multiple cuts. So I think they changed it till after the last preseason game. Let me see if I can pull that up.
Yeah, that's
regardless, it's later on.
Yes, that's when we'll know. And man, that first game against the Cardinals. Oh gosh, September. Ooh, man, I get chills thinking about it, Ted. Because
to me, it's
it's right here. I mean,
it is.
August is halfway done, man. And here we are coming on Monday against the Ravens. Then we got Cincinnati and Arizona. Here we are. So
August 29th by 4 p.m. is when we got to drop it down to 53.
Yeah.
So we'll know by then. And, obviously your starters are all etched in. We all know who that's going to be. But it's the other, 53 guys on that. You got to fill out that roster. Who is it going to be? And some of these draft picks are not looking as good as some of these undrafted free agents that they picked up and some of these other guys that they claimed off waiver wires. And it's interesting to see, but are they going to do what's right and keep a guy because he's performing, or are they going to keep a guy because they drafted him? And only time is going to tell. But I know one thing, man, I can't wait to be back at FedEx Field with our burgundy and gold brothers and sisters. And unfortunately, a bunch of purple freaks, but it's going to be a damn good time out there.
But Captain Defense, we welcome you. Matter of fact, you told me that you'll be sitting in 134 and I'm in 132. So we'll make it happen, man. I hear the music playing in the background, which lets me know that we are bringing another episode of the DMV Mess Hall to a close. And it's been a great ride with you guys. And I can't wait to see you guys at FedEx Field Monday for the preseason game against the Baltimore Ravens. Ted, can't wait to see you, brother.
Looking forward to it, man.
As always, rep it hard, or don't rep it at all. Rally Captain, Tailgate Ted. This week, we're out.